Hello, welcome to Locked on Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And on today's episode, we're going to continue our review of the Barracuda players by looking at the defenders and the goalies. Look at guys like Shakir Mukhamadullin and their impact and kind of what's next for these guys. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked on Sharks.
You're Locked on Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. We're proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. You can easily find us wherever you get podcasts, and of course, watch this on YouTube as well. And we're going to continue our kind of dive into the Barracuda this week. Monday, of course, we had Nick Nollenberger on to kind of a nice overview and I start to look ahead of what's next for the Barracuda. And then on Tuesday, we also had we dove into the forwards and kind of which guys are expected to kind of make that next step and continue to kind of go forward and become the next wave of guys for the Barracuda. So today we're going to focus on the blue line and the goalies, kind of which guys are expected to be back next season and which guys might be fighting for jobs or completely somewhere else going into next season. So we're going to start with one Artemi Kniazev. We're going in order of points for the blue liners. And Artemi Kniazev led all the defenders in points last season. So Kniazev at the start of next year will be 22. He will be 1 year left on his contract, his ELC contract. He played 61 games this year, had 5 goals, 23 assists, and 127 shots on goal. And Kniazev was one of those players who you see his improvement just throughout the season, and by the end of the season had really kind of found his game and really kind of took it to a next level. I'm very, very excited about Kniazev as kind of being a two-way defender, providing some offense and providing defense as well. He's never going to be a shutdown defender, and he's never going to be a massive point scorer in the NHL. But I think he can be a good two-way defender for the Sharks. And you really saw him kind of find his game the second half of the season, especially with the blue line that was for the Barracuda definitely dealing with a bunch of injuries. And he was asked to kind of do a lot of things, play on the power play, play on the penalty kill, play in all situations. And I really, like I said, I think Kniazev, the second half of the season this year, he was a bright spot for the Barracuda, especially on that blue line. And I think his game took a huge step forward. I expect him to be back on the Barracuda next season, but I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of, assuming the Sharks are bad next year, at the end of the season, if he's getting some NHL time, especially as his contract's about to expire or go, his ELC is about to expire, they kind of want to see how much he's grown since the last time he got NHL experience, which was the 2020 or the 2021-2022 season. Gosh, it's been that long. He's got a little bit of it, but really kind of want to see how he's grown and where he kind of fits. And I think Kniazev should be in the, running for a top 4, potentially top pairing defensive unit for the Cuda next year. So as we're really excited with his development this season. So moving on next, Derrick Pouliot. So he'll be 29, or he just turned 29. He'll be 29 at that start next season. He is a UFA, 37 games, had 4 goals, 21 assists, 72 shots on goal. If he had played more games, he would have easily led the Barracuda in scoring, but he was the Barracuda's best defenseman. He won that award for them. Got an NHL contract, signed an NHL only contract last season, and then earned himself an NHL contract and played some NHL games last year. Famously assisted on William Eklund's first goal, but Pouliot, he really solidified, was an anchor for that blue line. We talked about it with Nick Nollenberger on Monday. This blue line that you saw, especially when he in the middle of the season when he got hurt, the blue line kind of fell apart. I would love to have Derrick Pouliot back on the Barracuda next season. If Pouliot is there next year, like you feel like there's a lot of young talent, but having Pouliot kind of lead the way for the defenders next year would be great. I don't know if it's in the cards. We'll see. Maybe he's earned himself another NHL contract, or who knows. But with his play this season, maybe somebody takes a swing on him, but I would love to have him back. We'll see what happens in the future. But I thought he was a great signing by Joe Will and Mike Grier this offseason, and really solidified the blue line, especially when everything was kind of falling apart around them. So we shall see. I hope he's back. And then Patrick SEILOFF. Who would have guessed if you had told me Patrick SEILOFF was third in scoring for defensemen? I would have easily called you a liar. Patrick SEILOFF, 29, played 71 games this year. Would have played every game, but they gave him the night off in the final game of the season. Had 1 goal, 13 assists, 81 shots on goal. A guy like SEILOFF who came in on a tryout, basically. Played half the season on tryout, earned an AHL contract, wore a letter. Like this is a guy who really impressive what he kind of did and how, again, helped to solidify a lot of stuff that was falling around. We'll see if he earns another AHL contract. There's a lot of these type of guys, SEILOFF, Hallway, a bunch of these kind of guys who are going to be fighting for some spots, especially with the Sharks adding so much blue line prospect talent that's going to be making an impact next year on the Barracuda. If I would be more than happy to bring him back, as another camp tryout and kind of see what goes from there. But, good story for SEILOFF this season. So, I was pleasantly surprised by him. So, and then next we'll go Montana Onyebuchi. So Onyebuchi, 23, played an AHL contract last year. Is a UFA again this year. He's a free agent. If the Sharks want to sign him to another, if the Barracuda want to sign him to another, if he had a good season and didn't get hurt, he got hurt halfway through the season and basically lost the rest of the season. It would have been interesting if he had continued the way he was playing, if he would have earned himself an NHL contract. Again, finished, not including Ryan Merkley, finished 4th among the active Barracuda defenseman with his 10 points. And you saw in the beginning of the season was, we know Onyebuchi really can provide the kind of physical nature, but he had some scoring touch this year. And when I interviewed him, he talked about just kind of shooting more and also just having better players on the forward group. But you saw some more of the offense this season. So I think he will be back on another AHL contract because, again, I know the Sharks have added some blue line prospects. But I think in the AHL, you still need some very physical defenders. And I think Montana Onyebuchi brings that. And you've developed this guy over the past 2 seasons. And I think there's definitely a role for him going forward. So, but I hope they bring Onyebuchi back. So before we continue with the defenders, and then we'll get into the goalies. We're going to be talking about Shakir Mukhamadullin here in a second. But before we do all that, I do need to take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our friends over at Bird Dogs, one of our new sponsors. So Bird Dogs, it's getting hot. It's summertime. You want some comfy pants that make you actually look really nice. Bird Dogs, the way to go. They sent me a couple pairs. They're really stretchy fabric, but they kind of snap back in, and they're so much comfier than basically any other pair of pants or shorts I own. They're great weekend shorts, right? If you got kids soccer in the morning, Then you're going to, got to run all the errands around Target and Home Depot and Lowe's. Then you're going to go out to, maybe you go out to the brewery at night. All situations, they got you covered. Like I said, just and the built-in underwear, life-changing with the built-in underwear. So go check them out. And right now, when you go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL, enter the promo code LockedOnNHL. They're going to throw you in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. So when you're at the pool, at the kids' soccer games, running errands, or whatever you're doing in the heat, it's going to keep your drink nice and cold. Get you hydrated through the day while you're wearing your Bird Dogs. So again, go check out birddogs.com. Get yourself a free tumbler when you use the promo code LockedOnNHL. All right. So yeah, most of those guys, it'll be interesting to see kind of where some of those guys are back. We're going to get into some guys who will be back when are going to be expected to be kind of taking big steps. And I think the first one is Shakir Mukhamadullin, who started a little slow, which is expected, right? Especially coming over at the end of the season, long KHL season, coming to a new system, all that stuff. But really, really caught on fire as he gained more confidence. He'll be 21, 2 years left on his ELC at 894,000. In 12 games, he was almost a point per player game on the blue line, had a goal and 10 assists with 13 shots on goal. And I expect him to really kind of be the top defender for the Barracuda next year, at least when it comes to points. I would be surprised if he's playing NHL games, just because I still think it's a little bit shaky, especially what we saw. But after he got more comfortable in the system and, just more comfortable with his teammates, he really kind of calmed down and settled down. And you can see why the Sharks are very, very excited about his potential. I'm expecting big things out of Mukhamadullin next season. So, especially if he can continue this scoring pace. I know he had a game where he had 4 points in that game, but if he's flirting around a point per game player as a defenseman next year, or even if he's in 72 games, if he's got like over 50 or 60 points, and is really showing growth in his defensive and just more confidence. I think that's the thing with him, is just kind of showing that confidence. The Sharks are going to be feeling really, really good about Mukhamadullin going forward. So, again, I don't expect him to be in play for a Sharks roster spot, especially going from the KHL over here. We know with defenders, it takes a little bit different getting used to kind of the smaller ice, et cetera, just kind of relearning those angles and where you need to be. I know it's less ice to defend, but the game is just much, much different. And he needs to continue to bulk up and get ready to play bigger, stronger, forwards, not get, kind of pushed around as much. So, but I'm really excited about Mukhamadullin. I think we saw a taste of it last year, and with the forward group kind of coming back, and you're expecting a lot of those guys to kind of take another step, guys like Robbins and stuff, that you have to be excited for what Mukhamadullin could do too with those guys. So expect big things from Mukhamadullin next season. So, and again, was in 12 games, ended up being fifth in, excluding Merkley, ended up being fifth in scoring along the blue line. I don't know if that's a testament to the lack of scoring on the blue line or just lack of scoring in general from the Barracuda, but really provided an offensive spark for the team down the stretch. All right, Darren Brady, another one of those kind of guys who camp invites earned an AHL contract. He'll be 27 at the beginning of next season. 50 games, had 3 goals, 6 assists, 51 shots on goal. Again, you're going to start to see a numbers game with guys like SEILOFF and Brady, and we'll talk about Will Rydell and ONYEBUCHI. And so we'll see if he's back. I thought he played. He's going to at least give himself a chance to earn a contract, if not here, at least somewhere else type of situation. I think it's just going to become a numbers game for the Barracuda going forward here on the blue line. And, maybe he goes and plays in the ECHL or he goes to another AHL team and is just kind of, if you need him, you can kind of always give him a call and, sign him to an amateur tryout and kind of go from there type of situation. So, Will Rydell, kind of the same thing, right? 27, 32 games this year, had 2 goals, 3 assists with 48 shots on goal. Like kind of the same thing with Brady, right? Where it's going to eventually become a numbers game with these, especially with the additions on the blue line. So, yeah. All right. And then Nick Cicek. So Cicek has 1 year left on his $835,000 ELC. He'll be 23 at the beginning of next season. 37 games, had 1 goal, 2 assists with 36 shots on goal. Interestingly enough, he scored more points in the NHL this year, made his debut in the NHL. I think he's going to kind of be that bounce between guy where he's going to play AHL games, and then if somebody gets hurt, he's probably going to be the first call up to go play NHL games for the Sharks, kind of going forward. So I think the offense, you're hoping to make him to kind of maybe take another step forward offensively, but I can kind of understand, especially when he played a majority of the time at the beginning of the season when the team was still kind of figuring things out, and then bounce between the Sharks and the Barracuda kind of the middle of the season as well. So I kind of expect him to start. He's still waivers eligible, he can pass through waivers without having, or he can be sent down, without having to pass through waivers. I expect him to start next season on the Barracuda, but like, he's going to be playing a top 4 role for the Barracuda, and kind of, Pouliot's not there. I think he's going to kind of take that role as, the defensive leader. I would not be surprised if Cicek is wearing an A next season, just because he kind of seems like one of those guys who a lot of guys look to. But again, I think he's going to be kind of living that tweener life right now of playing between the NHL and playing between the AHL at the moment. And, that's, you usually have to kind of go through a year or 2 of that before you kind of solidify yourself as an NHL player. So, look at guys like Magna and Middleton and, all these guys who kind of played in the AHL for a while and then eventually kind of got their shot in the NHL. And I know he got a taste of it last year. But I think Nick Cicek can be a solid bottom pairing defenseman in the NHL going forward, or a top level AHL defender, kind of shutdown defender. So I expect hopefully we see a little bit more stability with Cicek going forward, and, partnering him with a guy like Mukhamadullin or Kniazev or whoever. I think that's a kind of a good spot for him, especially like a guy like Mukhamadullin who can provide the offense, and Cicek can kind of focus a little bit more on being the kind of defender between the two players. So, but congrats to him. I mean, he's worked really hard, got his NHL debut this year, was provided 4 assists, which I still think it's crazy. Providing that much providing more offense in shorter amount of games in the NHL than they did in the AHL. But, I think also playing a little bit with Erik Karlsson kind of helps that too. So, but yeah, I'm still excited about Cicek going forward. I think he's still in that Middleton magnet type of path for him going forward. So, before we get into the goalies and stuff like that, I think kind of looking ahead for the Barracuda and their defense, right? You're going into next year, right? You have Kniazev, who's going to be back, Shakir Mukhamadullin, Nikita Ohutka. I'm struggling with that one still. He's going to be ready to roll, right? You're going to have Nick Cicek as well. Then you got, Nikolai Kniazev, who's might be in the mix as well. Maybe if he doesn't win a job right out of camp, but there's going to be some talent along this blue line for the Sharks, for the Barracuda, right? I don't expect Guillen and Larocque who this is also potentially available. I don't expect him, especially since he missed basically the entire season except for 4 games. I expect him to stay with Victoria for one more season and then kind of make his when Victoria's season is over, I think he'll jump up to the Barracuda, and that will be he'll be a professional hockey player from there on out. But then you have, Artemi Kniazev, who, if you remember, he was one of the last guys who got sent back to the OHL. He signed his ELC. I expect him to be with the Barracuda next season and, kind of providing that kind of physical edge, kind of like the Montana Onyebuchi style. Really found his offense once he got traded to Flint. I don't know if Petersburg was maybe the best fit for him, but once I think he got more opportunity once he got traded, and even looking at, so among the Sharks, there's going to be a numbers game at some point. Nick Cicek, who I think is still waivers exempt. It'll be close. I'm not sure. So, no, he's got one more NHL game and then he loses his waiver exemption. So, so he's going, can only play one more NHL game before he's going to have to start passing to waivers. You have Henry Thrun, of course. You have I think they're going to give every opportunity to kind of fight for an NHL job. Then you're going to have guys like Jacob McDonald, Radim Shimmick. Like, there's kind of be a numbers game, and one of those guys, I posed the question if Radim Shimmick might be starting to phase into a AHL. So no matter what happens, right, you're going to have some quality blue line defenders are look going forward. So I feel really, really solid about where the blue line is headed into next offseason for the Barracuda. And that doesn't even include if they have any signings or whoever they bring back, or at least competing for jobs. So I think we're going to see much deeper, more talented blue line than we did this season for the Barracuda. So before we continue, look at the goalies. Wait till you hear the improvement from the goalies here. Do need to take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our friends over at eBay Motors. So you guys know, for a championship team, it's all about making sure it's a perfect, each player is a perfect fit. Is the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guarantee Fit, you can make sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to the My Garage and look for a green check to make sure that the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guarantee Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right. So the Barracuda. Oh, I missed one defender. Patrick Holloway, kind of in the same thing. He had 2 points in 27 games. Same type of thing where he's gonna be fighting for a spot. So my bad, Patrick Holloway. All right. The goalies. 1, Aaron Dell got the majority of the starts, so he'll be 34 at the beginning of next season. Just had his birthday. This season he played 38 games, 898 save percentage, 314 goals against average, 954 saves. I don't think Aaron Dell's going to be back, especially with the goalies that they've signed or expected to sign. You have Eetu Mäkiniemi, who's projected to be back. He is an RFA. We'll get into that here in a minute. You just signed Magnus Krona from, after finishing up school. You signed the Russian Georgiev Romanov. So there's going to be some competition in there. And with the expectation, I believe that Mäkiniemi is going to be the guy going forward. But Aaron Dell, I think, did exactly what you wanted. He helped kind of solidify the Barracuda goalie room, especially I'm going to go through this year's numbers and last year's numbers for the Barracuda. It's absolutely insane. but provided some leadership in that room, especially with the young guys like Mäkiniemi and Mann, and just kind of was a stabilizing force for the Barracuda after what we saw last season. And they rode him really hard at the end of the season to try to make the playoffs, but guys know, unfortunately, Cuda just missed out on making the playoffs. So I don't expect Dell to be back. It'll be interesting if he gets another shot elsewhere, or if I think Aaron Dell kind of feels like a good goalie coach eventually. So if maybe he starts transferring into that lifestyle here soon, but I expect somebody will give him a call here this offseason to see if he wants to come and play in the AHL for them. So kind of just be a third goalie for somebody. So Eetu Mäkiniemi is 24, RFA. Evolving Hockey projects him to sign a 1-year vetman type of contract. Played 22 games, had this season 900 save percentage, 296 goals against average, 543 saves. Also did make his NHL debut, beating the Ducks. I think he gave up 2 goals in that game. Mäkiniemi kind of feels like the de facto goalie number 1 for the Barracuda next season, but injuries have derailed his last 2 seasons. His last season with Chicago before he got traded to San Jose this last offseason, and then he wasn't able to finish out the season this year with an unknown injury, but apparently was not related to the one that hurt we got hurt in Chicago. So I expect him to be the starting goaltender for the Barracuda next season, and kind of be that third goaltender for the Sharks. I still think they're going to get some competition for Kaapo Kähkönen, but I think Mäkiniemi is going to be the third, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing if his season with Barracuda go well. I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing some games with the Sharks at some point next year as well. So and then Strauss Mann, who I feel like might be the odd man out here, especially with all the signings, right? He'll be 25. He's also an RFA, played 22 games with the Barracuda, also played a handful of games in the ECHL. 894 save percentage, 332 goals against average with 490 saves. Man, you have to remember, was signed before Mike Grier got there. He was signed in April. Mike Grier got there end of June, beginning of July, whenever that was. That was a blur. But, I think we know what type of goalie that Mike Grier likes. You see Magnus Krona, big boy. Georgi Romanev, big boy. Like, he seems to kind of want these bigger goalies. Even, Mason Beaupet's a tall goalie as well. And I think that's kind of the direction he is leaning. Strauss Mann's, touch over 6 foot, I believe, or maybe 6 foot. Actually, I saw him in person. I think I'm slightly taller than him, and I'm like 6 foot on the dot. So, but I think he earned himself at least another tryout somewhere else to kind of go in. I think Strauss Mann can still be a good AHL goalie and maybe a potential kind of third goalie for a team, going forward. I just think he's kind of good. It's going to be a numbers game for him with the Sharks going forward. But before we finish up, like I said, I wanted to talk about the goalie situation for the Barracuda last year versus this year. It's absolutely insane. So this year, all goalies, if you combine their numbers, are, so they played 72 games, had 5 shutouts. Goals against average was that's so weird. For some reason, it adds empty nets in there. Basically, like, their goals against average was right around 320 or something like that, right? 315, 320. Save percentage 891. Again, that can't be right with the empty netters. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, so you had 894, 898, 900. So we'll just kind of say 898 or whatever is like their save percentage. Last year, why did they put empty net? That's so dumb. It makes it hard to kind of look at. But anyway, way to go, AHL. Last year, the Barracuda played 6 different goalies with a 422 goals against average and like an 870 save percentage with Aiden Hill in his 1 start, like kind of leading the way. yeah, it's just night and day. So hopefully the Cuda can keep this going forward, especially with Eetu Mäkiniemi kind of being the de facto number one, and Magnus Krona or Georgi Romanev, whoever kind of wins the backup job. And then I assume the third one will start the season in the ECHL. And then, like we saw last year, they'll kind of rotate and bring that guy, third guy in occasionally. But if Mäkiniemi can continue to take a step forward, stay healthy. This blue line looks talented. Like, this Barracuda team is going to be fun next year, even though they may not have the top end talent like a William Eklund and Thomas Bordelot for the whole season. I think they're going to be a deeper team with guys kind of with a lot more experience. So should be a fun Barracuda team going forward. So a more consistent Barracuda team as we talked about with Nick Nollenberger. So thank you guys for watching or listening or however you are consuming this. We'll be back tomorrow. We have another draft profile. Bo Akey with Brock Otten of Hockey, McKean's Hockey, and he also does the podcast with our bald friend Tony Ferrari. So we talk about Bo Akey, and I get his Carlson Smith or Michkov answer, and his might surprise you a little bit. So you guys, make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. And until tomorrow, bye, friends.